Oh, it's still. Oh, hey, hi, welcome to Press Radio. This is show number 19. I always ask Paul, wow, what do you think, Paul?
Your volume's down. Hang on.
Yeah, your audio dropped out a little bit.
It did. Can you hear me now?
There we go. Yes. Show number 19.
Show number 19. Well, this is Prayers Radio, and we actually just do discussions, and, we're not really scripted or anything like that. We do have a format. But, yeah. But I'm Reverend Rich. This is Reverend Paul. And this is our guest, J.R. Mendivil RScP. He is a prayer practitioner, licensed prayer practitioner at OC Spiritual Center, and a martial artist. I can speak to that. He's been doing it over 40 years. Master Mendivil, Tong Su. And he's also a very good friend of mine. And we fight sometimes.
We've known each other about 20 years now.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, should we pray in, Paul, or should we just let him tell about himself beforehand? What do you think?
I know, let's all pray in first. That sets the ground for everything.
All right, go ahead and lead us in prayer if you would.
Oh, I love to lead in prayer. So let's look into that mind's eye and really connect with the universe. The universe is all around us. It's spinning in and out and through us. And we are experiencing this collision of time, space, and energy. And in that idea, in that unity, I declare that our time together here is one of positive influence and loving guidance to all. It is a beautiful unfoldment, and I am grateful. I am grateful to know that of Rich and Paul, and I'm grateful to know of all the listeners that may be listening and see something that they can take away and appreciate. And in that gratitude, I do release into law, and so it is. Amen.
And so it is.
Wow. Always powerful. You have to realize something, that this is a martial artist. We talked about business in show, was it 6? I always got to look at my notes because we've done a lot of shows. What do you think, Paul? A lot of shows so far?
A lot of shows, but just beginning.
Just beginning. The nice thing about it is that a lot of times as science of mind practitioners, we always release into law that, we accept more. We don't want more. We tell the universe, hey, it's ours to have, and I want it. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, JR, if you would, please?
Well, I've been in Science of Mind. Actually, I was first exposed to it about 20, or something similar to Unity, about 20 years ago. And over that time, between things happening in my life experiences, I finally started attending church. In fact, one time it was really funny. Richard got me into the classes. I was teaching children on Tuesday nights, and I couldn't, or was it Thursday nights? Anyway, and I couldn't go to the classes. And then one time the parents called me and said, well, we can't get together tonight. And then Richard called, why don't you come to the class? And after attending that class, I was like, wow, this is incredible. So after that, I never stopped taking classes until I ended up with my practitioner license. And it's kind of funny because I just kept on going, like, well, okay, this is good. But as I was attending classes, what I noticed is that everything in my life was actually working better because I was able to apply what I was learning in class right to life itself. Wow. So yeah, thank you, Richard. That was because of you.
Well, JR and I have done the martial arts journey and the science of mind journey, and I'm like, wow, it's like the old thing, you just find good people in your life and you keep them in there because God brings those people to us that resonate with us, and keeps those people away that don't resonate with us, because you're going to resonate with some people and not with all people, but you can get along and be peaceful with everybody. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, exactly. Like Michael Beckwith would say, it's an energy. So you're feeling the energy with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about that.
our energies change throughout our lives, and I think that is just a way of growth in the sense, especially when we're looking at a higher energy level, and that tends to change or make dissonance, you might say, with other people that might be in our lives that are no longer at that energy level, or have not experienced that. So it's a beautiful thing that we can see that and see it as growth.
What's your site again?
My sign?
Your site, not sign.
My sign.
Different color.
I'm a Virgo. My site is actually silverninjas.com. And I've been teaching martial arts over 40 years. But what I found is that even though I love teaching children and getting them to their black belt, it's kind of a teaching passion there. What I found is that taking those martial arts skills and teaching them to especially mature adults, and it reduces the likelihood of falling tremendously. So we all have those reflexes to keep us vertical, but as people age, they tend to be less and less refined and not easily called on. The thing about a fall situation, you can't think your way out of it. It has to happen immediately. It's just like, oh, there's a punch coming to my nose. I'm going to do something to redirect it. Same thing with a fall situation. I'm off balance, and you re-engage those balance mechanisms. So it's fairly easy, but it needs to be done.
Yeah. Some of the other things that, you have classes 4 times a week, and they're about a half an hour class. And if you're a business person and you're sitting at the desk, you could do it, just stand up and he'll do a pandiculation, he'll do this other thing. The reason why we bring it up is that as Science of Mind folks, we're responsible for ourselves.
Oh, yes.
God works through us and for us. What do you think, Paul?
Oh, yes, exactly.
And so we need to get that exercise, and then he'll do a plug at the end of this, but we'll get into that. He's also a veteran of the armed services, so those of you that are Air Force, this guy's was Air Force. But anyways, I just put it out there because we love our country, and we love everybody else out there in the world also. Go ahead and hit the first question, Paul, if you would.
So, JR, what tangible results have you seen from doing affirmative prayer?
Wow. Affirmative prayer, first of all, one of the biggest things is, even before the prayer for me, is reaching clarity on what I really want and what I desire, should I say, and feeling myself moving into that. That's one of the first things, because without that, it's kind of wishy-washy and really not directed. And with that, I'm able to direct myself. For instance, would I believe 10 years ago that I'd be having my own sessions here in my home, teaching people to not fall? No, I didn't. But I understood. For instance, when my first student was actually my mother. And what I found is that as she was getting older, she was experiencing decline. And she says, mijo, my joints hurt. It hurts my muscles hurt. And I said, oh, Mom, you just need to move a little bit more. And then she asked me, well, what do you do? And I showed her martial arts. Actually, not martial arts. It's just a flexing of the whole body from head to toes. And it allows all the muscles to work, all the joints to do a full rotation. And then she was able to get a bounce out of that. So it made a big difference to her. But as far as my prayer, how it has evolved, even seeing how their experience, my parents' experience, how they experienced towards our end of life, and understanding how I can help guide them through their transitions. Myself, experiencing relationships, and even end of relationships that are not at the same level as what I experienced before. So it's very interesting that I can look at those and say, wow, this is so much more handy than simply having emotion placed on it that or emotion that is not helpful. So that, I think that's what I feel the most, is that now, because of how I'm doing, how my prayers are, I feel fearless. And that's so liberating that, oh no, there's nothing happens that could harm me in my sense of soul and connection with God. So that's where I am now.
Wow.
Nice.
Well, we want to say hi real quick to our Twitch audience, our Rumble audience, because we stream live to them. And then we add our YouTube audience a little bit later because there's a real weird technical glitch going on with that. But yeah, we put it on later. But we just want to say hi and to our Substack, and our folks on Apple Podcasts, which we just added last week. Did I tell you about that, Paul?
Yeah, that's the best thing ever.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, radio.net and a bunch of other ones. So we're out there. But
Very cool.
Go ahead and continue with the questions. I'm looking around working on this stuff. So, I'm here.
So JR, when we go into prayer, when you go into prayer, how do you stay grounded in that prayer?
How can I not be grounded? It's interesting because before it's all training of mind. It's just like training of the body. You learn a particular motion, you practice it and practice it and practice it. If I wanted to do a good snap kick, I just practice it and refine it and refine it. It's much the same thing that I did with when it comes to prayer and allowing myself to set into that mode of prayer. What I find more interesting is that how quickly I can actually drop into that and not have to feel I position myself to the North Star or whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying that I could drop right into it and say, or if I'm experiencing something. A good one is traffic. I see traffic slowing down up ahead, and I say, I am in perfect flow, God's perfect flow, God's speed right now. And I do a couple of lane changes and I keep on going. I don't slow down. That's okay. That's how I do it. And of course, parking spots. And I look around, there's no, all these cars here, but there's a spot for me. And if I rush it, I get there before the parking spot is ready. And if I take my time as I'm pulling up, the reverse lights come on. Oh, there it was. Okay. It's exactly like that. So how do I put myself into there? It's like I said, it's almost a constant because I've practiced it so much. I can drop into that prayer mode very quickly, very easily, but it does take practice.
And what's that feeling behind the prayer? Because prayer is always about the thought and the feeling.
That's love. One of the things I like to think about almost all situations is that when you're in a situation, what do you do to help resolve it? Throw love at it. Just, if you imagine yourself a vessel and you just pour right into it, and the whole thing changes. The whole thing changes. And, withholding that love is probably our biggest downfall in the sense that we might feel that for me personally, that I might need to protect myself. And that's like, no, I'm just going to throw love at it, and then it resolves. So that's the quick and easy way to do it. Of course, again, it takes practice to come to that place. So.
Sort of like the martial arts of the spiritual world is what science of mind is. What do you think?
Put it.
Yeah, I was thinking about that on that because, you and I are martial artists and stuff. We know better if you don't have to fight, you could just run, depending on what the situation. Why should I stay around and spend any energy on something? Paul talked about that in a previous show. I don't want to give any energy to this. I'm just going to, remember it. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I was going to ask JR too. With the martial arts aspect of prayer, so prayer could be a martial arts for the spirit. So we're bombarded with fear, anxiety, or lack, and then you can step aside from that and know love, know abundance, know faith.
Right. Exactly.
And how does that start with your day? How do you start your day normally?
Well, one of the first things before I even get out of bed, I affirm, what kind of day am I going to have? And it's always the same answer. Awesome. I don't know what's going to happen, but there's just such beautiful unfoldment out there right now, unfolding for me. And that allows me to get out of bed. Well, and with the spring. But as I mentioned in our pre-broadcast, that when it comes to prayer and meditation, I try to be in constant prayer. And in the sense that and meditation. So I've been asked, well, how you got to meditate at least once a day. It's like, God, I can't get over meditating less than 5 times a day just because it. And I, in fact, I went to a meditation last night, and one of the gentlemen noticed that I drop into it and said, well, yes. Why do I drop into meditation so fast and so easily? Same thing as prayer. Is that it really feels good. It is like you suddenly the universe has wrapped you up in swaddling clothes and you are just a blessed baby. So yes, it is how the mind is trained in that respect, and it takes time. For me, it takes a lot of time.
I mean, it's individualized for each person because we all grow. And as we grow, we know more. It's just like anything else when you're learning or writing. I mean, if I want to, I mean, you remember, if I did a punch when I was doing a punch and stuff, if I did it like that, my wrist is gone, right? So it's all a matter of technique, and that technique is for yourself based on how you believe and conceive that stuff through you, because God works through us and for us and then ripples out to the universe. I've said that so many times, but it's true.
And that's where you, as you mentioned, if you're practicing, having a master that would help you refine the practice is really important. And that's whether it's like Richard and myself, Rich and myself, we bounce ideas off of each other, and it helps to refine what we're doing. And of course, Jim Minister and other ministers and other practitioners, just getting that idea of constant growth, really looking into how to improve the thought processes. And it has the analogies in martial arts. For instance, you can practice a technique that is not effective.
Oh yeah. Looks good.
and then when a master says, well, this would help. Okay, if for me, staying open at the top and being able to take in new information, that's really important. So yes, it is what it is. It's a way of growth.
Yeah, as a black belt, or even as a master teacher and stuff, because we got our credentials and stuff because we've been working on this forever. But even myself and JR and stuff, the techniques have to be there, and if you don't have somebody at least critique you on the techniques, even with prayer, sometimes it's like, well, you didn't release it to law. What do you expect? It's not going to,
even just saying this or something better.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Paul? I mean, if you don't release a prayer to the law, what's your thoughts?
Well, if there's any doubt, then you just do the prayer over. Because a prayer is always about the person praying. It's not about what we're demonstrating or manifesting. It's how we feel and think into that prayer.
And that's why we have these conversations. That's what this whole show is about, is the conversation. This is not scripted, folks. We're just, wow, that sounds good.
Well, when JR was talking about the martial arts, it brought up the 80s movie, The Karate Kid. And he was through the practice of doing different rituals, the wax on, wax off, the up and down, to get into that mode of repetition. And so it's the same thing with prayer. We get into that mode. Like JR pre-show was talking about just being in prayer all the time. And would you like to share that, JR, how your prayer has evolved over time?
Well, yes. One of the biggest things that when we were first learning, we'd write out the prayers. But what I now feel is that even though I can write out a prayer, and I will write out a prayer on occasion, as soon as I finish with that last period at the end, I realize this prayer is no longer alive. It is on paper, but it's no longer alive. And when I can stop, just as when we did the prayer at the beginning of the show, those are the live prayers, the ones that really, we have to drop into that idea of unity and deliver it in that respect. And that's where what I say is a live prayer. So have those evolved? Well, like I mentioned, it's constant. I go and start breakfast, and I'll do a quick. Whoa, what kind of breakfast am I gonna? I don't know, but it's gonna be delicious. My drive to wherever I might commute to, the traffic. I look at the ways. Oh, there's traffic building up, but it's gonna be perfect. Somehow, it's just gonna flow as a river, or even meeting with somebody that may have. There may be some conflict or whatever, and praying through those as well. So it goes on and on and on and on. And I plant a seed and I do a prayer. I turn on the computer. Yeah, I'll do a prayer there. What do I what's my expectancy of my computer? Is it going to work? And I'm rarely surprised with a negative. So it's yeah.
You know, we one of the things that I, when we're Paul and pre-show, we were talking about business and stuff because we did a thing on business, and you said you had worked for a couple of companies before that, corporate things of that nature, and you've sort of evolved over time to get to the place that you're at, and then you realize that you can manifest anything you want. You want to speak to that? Your journey on that in terms of the business world.
Well,
Yeah.
Now, remember, it's a perspective there that even though the business world was not necessarily my most desired, I also did not have the tools that I have now. So I can look at it and say, well, it wasn't working out for me, but I wasn't applying what I know now. So it's like, okay, well, now I'm in a different place and I'm doing a different thing and I'm really enjoying it. But is it because I'm doing a different thing and I'm in a different place and I'm doing what I'm enjoying, or simply because every time I open up my sessions, I'll do it with a prayer? Who knows? Right? It's all perspective in that respect. So if I look back and I would think, if I was applying prayer for anything I was doing, whether I was going to college, or doing analysis of the equipment I was working with, or the processes that we were developing, had I put prayer into that? Not likely. And so they came out to the default, which is, okay, what can this brain put into it, rather than spirit is already applying in it.
Wow.
I've said this before. I wish I would have known this when I was in my teens. Oh my God.
But you may not have been ready for it. The energetic.
Actually, I probably was. But what I did is I allowed myself to be drawn into the conditions of, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do this. And so I was looking at myself as the source rather than the universe as a source. So it was very different. And that's why I say, wow, what would I have done with this if I knew this in my teens?
Well, it's again, that goes to that receptivity. I think I told you that I was at Huntington Beach CSL for a little while, and my mother would take me there, and I'd be like, I don't want no church. And then you end up either accepting it at that point or going on a different path and stuff that makes you the person that you are today. And that's a good thing.
That's interesting, because one of the most interesting things that I found about it is that when I had actually attended Michael Bernard Beckwith's church in Culver City one time. And I remember Michael in this very flowery and beautiful language talking about the upper room and all the light that's filled and beauty in it. And I look and I say, yeah, Michael, what are you talking about? How do you get there? And I didn't know at the time, but I was asking the universe, show me. And before then, I didn't know that I could ask that. Well, I still didn't know that I could ask that question, and eventually that answer would come. So now I could ask that question and say, illuminate me. How can I heal my hip? I experienced a sprain in my hip. How do I heal this? And then, oh, here it is. That's one of the ways I'm going to heal it. And it's very subtle. It's very subtle, but we as beings can be constantly illuminated. After all, it's always raining on us. It's always raining on us.
We're at the 5-minute mark before the close of our show. Paul, go ahead and ask the questions that you want to ask.
Hey, is there a favorite book by Ernest Holmes that you enjoy?
Well, this thing called you is probably the most available. And even though I love Ernest Holmes, I do capture knowledge from all sorts of sources. Eckhart Tolle is another favorite of mine. I love actually. I had loved reading Troward's Thomas
Mm.
Troward as well. He had a very eloquent way of putting things. They weren't in the, you might say, science of mind, but they do have that flavor in it. And I love how that. So I look at it this way: there's sources of information everywhere.
Oh yeah, that's what
And
Ernest Holmes did. He brought all the information in and utilized it into the one book.
right, and so all that information is there, whether it's in the textbook, whether it's in this thing called you, or whether even other philosophies, of course. But understanding that when you're taking these in, are they expressed in love or are they expressed in fear? And that's probably the definitive way to say, well, what does this say for me? And if I could say that, yes, this sounds like love to me, then I can say, okay, that's usable for me. If it's from a fear based, then I can reject it fairly easily.
Perfect. And
What's your favorite? Go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead.
I was going to say, what's your favorite quote? And that isn't the mainstream that everybody else says. So.
Wow. A
Ernest
quote.
Holmes. Ernest Holmes
Ernest
quote.
Holmes quotes. Yeah, you know what? I didn't look this up.
So that's why we have you on the spot, because this is
Yeah,
live.
you put me on the spot, and I was thinking a quote from Ernest Holmes. I'm not saying it's a quote, but it is important. Is Rule 52, and just understanding we do experience this in the way that we decide to experience it, rather than simply being thrown on us. So, like I said, Rule 52, which is on page 52 of the textbook, and I'm not going to quote from it because I don't have it in front of me. Otherwise, I would.
Well, we did talk about it in a previous show. The Rule 52 and stuff, Paul and I. So you can always check back on the previous shows on that.
Yeah.
What other questions do you have on this, Paul?
If you were to talk to somebody not in science of mind, how would you explain it to them?
Learn freedom. Learn the freedom, and it's the freedom from the experience only, in the sense that we're here to experience it, but you are not tied to the outcome of that experience. And I think understanding that, and the other thing I think is that prayer helps to define what our experience will be, rather than, and Richard and I has talked about this, is going with the default, which is like throwing the dice. And when you get you're throwing the dice, you get statistics and you have a mean. But when it comes to prayer, every time you throw the dice are loaded in your favor.
I really got to
Whatever
really.
happens, they're loaded in your favor. So I think that in that respect, it's not really throwing dice. It's saying, okay, here's God. I'm here to experience it, and I know it's a loving universe. And I got sixes. Thank you very much.
I think I need to release that book that I talked about with you on that. It's coming. I already have the IBSN for it. It's already locked in the name and everything. What is the takeaway that you want our audience to have from this conversation?
Well, like I said, that there's a freedom out there that most people. If I try to look back on what I was experiencing before I was really exposed to science of mind, and also the idea of the spiritual, our connection and our ability in spirituality, is that everything else is fear-based. And it's, even if you're doing well, there's always a fear that at some point there's a failed. So really seeing that in the sense that we have a really dominion over our lives, a huge dominion over our lives that cannot be denied. And with that, if I was looking at my former self saying, there's a way path through this. You do have to learn it, but there is a way path through this. And experience that as quickly as possible, because the faster you learn it, the faster you can apply it. The faster you can apply it, the more beautiful life you have in form.
And what's we're at the close of the show now. What is your site again?
My site is it's silverninjas.com. It's kind of a riff on silver sneakers. You've heard of silver sneakers, and it's intended for mature adults. What I've been teaching, again, martial arts 40 years, but I've taken portions of that and helped to help people maintain balance, not fall down, or if it's a trip that becomes a whoops instead of a whoops, ow, and just avoiding that particular. We all have those reflexes already in our body from when we were toddlers. Imagine when a toddler falls down, they usually sit right straight down from their legs instead of toppling over. And those particular reflexes are always in us, but as we age, we tend to move further and further away from them. They're easily re-engaged.
And then people can just go to your site, check it out, and then maybe email you, try it out, see if it resonates with you.
Right.
And you do it live. So
it's all live. There's no recording, which means when we start with a centering motion. We do a flexing of the entire body, so that I don't go to the gym to lift weights anymore. I really don't need to, because the flexing is all the body does. Just imagine a cat or a dog. How do they get strong muscles? They don't go to the gym.
Check out his site and just contact him directly if you're interested.
Right.
Reverend Paul, what is your site?
Oh, I am spiritalive.com.
And he's done some really good work always. And we're Prayers Radio. I'm Rich, Reverend Rich, and we're going to have JR pray us out for today.
All right.
Yay, what an honor.
And again, in this universal nature of God, our experiences, our bodies, the whole of the world around us is again just a gathering of energy and intelligence. And right now, with that idea, I am totally immersed, and I declare this gathering is for our own purpose. It's for our own purpose of beautiful unfoldment as we choose. So with that beautiful unfoldment, I know that my heart is totally in this idea of God in action right now. Our next breath is one fulfilled with the idea and potentiality of our future. And in this, I am grateful. I am grateful for my beating heart, all the organs of my body perfectly aligned, my mind totally engaged, and in that, I do release into law for perfect demonstration. And so it is.
So it is. We are Prayers Radio, and we will see you next week with another exciting show.
All right. Thank you. Pleasure.